The large auditorium at Westfield University buzzed with excitement. Students and teachers filled nearly every seat. Today was special. Representative Jasmine Crockett was visiting to speak at the political forum. Many people had waited weeks for this event. John Miller arrived early but still had to sit in the back row. He didn't mind. As a political science major in his third year, John was just happy to be there. He wore his favorite blue button-up shirt and kept a small notebook, ready in his hand. John had grown up in a small farming town. His parents had never gone to college. He worked 2 jobs to pay for school and was proud to be the first in his family to attend university. The lights dimmed slightly as Professor Alan Grant walked to the center of the stage. The tall, gray-haired man tapped the microphone twice. "Welcome, everyone," he said with a smile. "Today we are honored to have Representative Jasmine Crockett join us to discuss current political issues." The crowd clapped as Crockett walked onto the stage. She wore a sharp red blazer and moved with confidence. She smiled and waved at the audience before taking her seat next to Professor Grant. The first 30 minutes went smoothly. Crockett talked about healthcare, jobs, and education. She answered questions from students with clear, detailed responses. John wrote down her main points in his notebook. He didn't agree with all her views, but respected how she explained her positions. Then, Professor Grant asked about her opponent in the upcoming election, Karoline Leavitt. "What do you think about Ms. Leavitt's new tax proposal?" he asked. Crockett's friendly smile faded. She sat up straighter and gripped the microphone tighter. "That proposal shows how little Ms. Leavitt understands about real economics," she said. Her voice grew sharper. "But what can we expect? She attended St. Anselm College, hardly a school known for producing policy experts." The audience grew quiet. John stopped writing and looked up in surprise. "Maybe if she'd gone to a school with more rigorous academic standards," Crockett continued, "she'd understand why her proposals are so harmful to working Americans." A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others nodded in agreement. Professor Grant's smile became stiff, but he didn't comment on what Crockett had said. John felt his face grow hot. The comment hit close to home. He had been accepted to 2 prestigious universities but chose Westfield because they offered him a better scholarship. People had questioned his choice too, suggesting he was settling for a lesser education. Did she just mock someone's education? Whispered Susan Wright, who sat next to John. Susan was a journalism student with short brown hair and glasses. She was already typing rapidly on her phone. "Seems that way," John whispered back. He gripped his pen so hard his knuckles turned white. The forum continued as if nothing unusual had happened. Crockett moved on to discuss climate policy, but John found it hard to focus. The dismissive comment about Leavitt's education kept replaying in his mind. After the event ended, students gathered in small groups outside the auditorium. Many were talking about Crockett's comment. "I don't see the problem," said Ben Harris, a senior with curly black hair. "She was just pointing out that Leavitt might not have the right background. But judging someone's ideas based on where they went to school seems wrong," replied Maria Gonzalez, who stood nearby. "I transferred here from community college. Does that make my opinions less valuable?" John listened to the debate but didn't join in. Instead, he walked to the library and found a quiet corner with a computer. He searched for information about St. Anselm College. It was a well-respected liberal arts school in New Hampshire, with strong programs in politics and humanities. Many successful people had graduated from there, including several members of Congress. Later that evening, John sat in his small dorm room. His roommate, Kyle Fisher, was out at basketball practice. John opened his laptop and saw that his social media feed was filled with clips from the forum. Someone had recorded Crockett's comment about Leavitt's education and posted it online. The video already had thousands of views and comments. "Can't believe she went there," one comment read. "What happened to judging ideas on their merit?" asked another. John scrolled through more comments. Some people defended Crockett, saying she was just being honest about educational differences. Others were angry, calling her comments elitist and disrespectful. John's phone rang. It was his mom calling from their family farm 200 miles away. "Hey, Mom," he answered. John, how was that political thing today? Was it exciting? His mother's voice was warm and interested. It was interesting, John said carefully. But something happened that bothered me. He explained what Crockett had said about Leavitt's college education. His mother listened quietly. That reminds me of when your high school counselor told us you shouldn't apply to big universities because our school was too small and rural, she finally said. Remember how angry that made you? I do, John said. The memory was still painful. The counselor had meant well but had suggested that students from their town rarely succeeded at top schools. You proved her wrong, his mother said proudly. And now you're doing great at Westfield. After talking with his mom, John felt restless. He walked to the campus coffee shop, the Daily Grind. The small shop was busy with students studying and talking. The walls were covered with art made by students and the smell of coffee filled the air. John ordered a black coffee and found an empty table near the window. As he sat down, he noticed a girl from his American government class, Olivia Parker, sitting nearby. She was watching something on her laptop with earbuds in, frowning slightly. Hey, Olivia, John said as he approached her table. Mind if I join you? Olivia looked up and removed one earbud. Oh, hi, John, sure. She gestured to the empty chair across from her. What are you watching? John asked as he sat down. The clip from today's forum with Crockett, she said. I couldn't make it to the event, but this is all over social media. Now. She turned her laptop so John could see. It was the moment when Crockett had made her comment about Leavitt's education. I was there, John said. It felt pretty uncomfortable in the room when she said that. I bet, Olivia said. My sister goes to St. Anselm, actually. She's studying political science too and works just as hard as we do. They talked for almost an hour about the forum, education, and whether a person's college background should matter in politics. Other students joined their table, adding their views to the conversation. By the time John returned to his dorm room, it was past midnight. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about all the students at different colleges and universities across the country, people like him who worked hard regardless of where they studied. He opened his laptop and started typing. He wasn't sure what he was writing at first, but words flowed onto the screen. Thoughts about education, respect, and judging people by their ideas, rather than their backgrounds. As the first light of dawn appeared outside his window, John finally went to bed. He didn't know it yet, but the events of the next few days would turn his private thoughts into public action, and his response to Crockett's comments would reach far beyond Westfield University's campus. The video clip continued to spread online. By morning, it would reach a sophomore at St. Anselm College named Mary Campbell, who would have something important to say about it. And soon, John would find himself at the center of a growing movement that neither he nor Representative Crockett could have anticipated. 3 days after the forum at Westfield University, Mary Campbell sat in the library at St. Anselm College. The morning sun streamed through tall windows, casting warm light on the wooden tables. Mary's blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail as she studied for her political theory exam. She took a short break and checked her phone. Mary, have you seen this? The message came from her roommate, Kate Wilson. It included a link to a video. Mary clicked on it. The video showed Representative Jasmine Crockett at some university event. Mary listened as Crockett criticized Karoline Leavitt's policy ideas, then directly mocked St. Anselm College. She attended St. Anselm College, hardly a school known for producing policy experts, Crockett said in the clip. Maybe if she'd gone to a school with more rigorous academic standards, she'd understand why her proposals are so harmful to working Americans. Mary's cheeks flushed. She looked around the library where dozens of students were working hard. Some were writing papers. Others were studying in groups, discussing complex ideas in whispered voices. These were her friends and classmates, all serious students with big dreams. Mary typed back to Kate. Just saw it. That's so unfair to all of us. More messages appeared from other friends who had seen the video. The clip was spreading quickly among St. Anselm students. Many felt hurt and angry. Mary packed her books and walked back to her dorm room. She shared a simple two-bedroom space with Kate on the third floor of Adams Hall. Their small living room had a couch with a faded blue cover and a coffee table covered with textbooks. Kate was already there, sitting cross-legged on the couch, with her laptop. "Can you believe what she said about our school?" Kate asked, looking up as Mary entered. "It's not just about our school," Mary said, dropping her backpack on a chair. "It's about this idea that only certain colleges matter. My dad works at a factory and saved for years so I could go to college. He was so proud when I got accepted here." Mary sat down at her desk and opened her laptop. She didn't plan to write anything special at first. She just wanted to express how she felt, but as she typed, her thoughts became clearer. "Education isn't about the prestige of your institution," she wrote. "It's about what you do with the knowledge you gain. As a student at St. Anselm, I've had professors who've shaped my thinking and challenged me to grow in ways I never imagined. When elected officials ridicule educational institutions, they're not just attacking a school, they're dismissing the hard work and potential of every student who walks those halls." Mary read over what she had written. It felt important. She posted it on her social media page with the video clip, then went to the dining hall for dinner. By the time she returned, 2 hours later, her post had been shared hundreds of times. Comments flooded in from students at various colleges across the country. "Thank you for saying this. I go to a community college and face this judgment all the time. My state university gave me an amazing education. I'm tired of people assuming only Ivy League schools matter. I'm sharing this with everyone I know. Education should be about learning, not status." Mary stayed up late reading the comments and replying to messages. She was surprised by how many people connected with her words. The hashtag #EducationRespect started appearing alongside her post. The next morning, Mary woke up to find that her post had been shared thousands of times. Local news websites had picked up the story. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications. "Your post is everywhere," Kate said, bringing Mary a cup of coffee. "Professor Jenkins even mentioned it in our morning class." Mary felt both excited and nervous. She had never expected such a big response. She checked her messages and found one from someone she didn't know, John Miller from Westfield University. "I was at the forum when Crockett made those comments," his message said. "Your response says exactly what I've been feeling. Would you be interested in talking about how we might turn this moment into something more meaningful?" Mary replied that she would. They arranged to video chat later that day. At 4 p.m., Mary sat at her desk and connected with John. On her screen appeared a young man with short brown hair and earnest eyes. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and sat in what looked like a dorm room. "Thanks for talking with me," John said. "I can't believe how your post took off." "I can't either," Mary admitted. "I was just sharing how I felt. I didn't expect it to reach so many people." They talked for over an hour. John told Mary about growing up in a small farming town and being the first in his family to attend college. Mary shared stories about her father working overtime at the factory to help pay for her education. "I think we have an opportunity here," John said. "People are clearly connecting with this issue. What if we organize some kind of online event where students from all types of schools could share their experiences?" "A virtual town hall," Mary suggested. "We could invite students from community colleges, state universities, private schools, everywhere." "Exactly," John said, his face lighting up. "Show that valuable education happens at all kinds of institutions." They spent the next 2 days planning. John created an online meeting space. Mary designed a simple flyer that they shared across social media. They reached out to student government associations at various schools. Meanwhile, the controversy continued to grow. News shows played the clip of Crockett's comment. Political analysts debated whether her words reflected a broader problem of elitism in politics. Karoline Leavitt herself responded briefly to a reporter's question about the incident. "I'm proud of my education at St. Anselm College," she said, "but I'd rather focus on policy issues than personal attacks." On Friday evening, 3 days after Mary's post went viral, she and John hosted their virtual town hall. They expected maybe 50 people to join. Instead, over 500 students logged in from across the country. Lisa Jones, a community college student from Arizona with long dark hair, spoke about transferring to a 4-year university. People assume my community college education was somehow less valuable, she said. But it gave me the foundation I needed when a prestigious university wasn't financially accessible. Rick Gonzalez, a student at a large state university in Texas, talked about how a professor had changed his life by believing in his potential. He didn't care where I came from, Rick said. He cared about where I was going. Students from small, liberal arts colleges, technical schools, and even Ivy League universities all shared similar messages. Education should be judged by impact, not by name or reputation. As the event continued, Mary noticed a message pop up in the chat. Peter Adams, an alumni of St. Anselm College who had become an environmental lawyer in Washington, D.C., asked to speak. When I heard what Representative Crockett said about my alma mater, I felt I had to respond, Peter said when John gave him the floor. I've worked alongside graduates from every type of institution. What matters isn't where you studied, but how you apply what you learned. Peter told them he was writing an open letter to major newspapers addressing the issue. You students have started something important, he said. I want to add my voice to yours. By the end of the 2-hour event, the students had created a statement calling for respect for all educational paths. They also planned more virtual meetings and ways to keep the conversation going. After everyone else had logged off, Mary and John remained on the call. I can't believe what's happening, Mary said, smiling but looking tired. This all started because you were at that forum and I happened to see that video, and because you decided to speak up, John added. Sometimes that's all it takes. One person willing to say something. They didn't know it yet, but their movement was about to grow even larger. The next morning, Peter Adams's open letter would be published in the Washington Post. News programs would start calling for interviews, and Representative Crockett's office would begin feeling the pressure to respond. The conversation about educational respect that Mary and John had started was spreading far beyond what either of them had imagined, and they were just getting started. The morning after the virtual town hall, John woke up to his phone ringing. He rubbed his eyes and checked the screen. It was Mary calling. John, have you seen the Washington Post today? Mary's voice was excited. John sat up in bed. No. What happened? Peter Adams published his open letter. It's on the front page of their website. John quickly opened his laptop. The headline read, "We must respect all educational paths, an open letter on academic elitism." The letter, written by Peter Adams, called out Representative Crockett's comments and defended St. Anselm College. But it went beyond that. It talked about how respecting different educational backgrounds was important for society. The value of education isn't measured by an institution's ranking, Peter wrote, but by how it transforms lives and prepares individuals to contribute meaningfully to society. By dismissing an entire educational institution, Representative Crockett has unwittingly dismissed the potential of countless Americans who didn't attend elite schools. The letter was powerful. It connected their student movement to larger issues of respect and opportunity in America. This is huge, John said. People will pay attention to this. He was right. By lunchtime, major news channels were discussing the letter. Political commentators debated whether Crockett's comments reflected a bigger problem in how Americans viewed education. John's phone kept buzzing with messages. Students from his university wanted to join the movement. Even Professor Grant, who had moderated the forum, sent John an email expressing support. Your response to what happened at the forum shows true leadership, the professor wrote. If you need any help with your efforts, please let me know. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Representative Crockett's office was dealing with the growing controversy. Her communications director, Samantha Lee, sat across from Crockett in a small conference room. The story isn't going away, Samantha explained. We need to respond. Crockett frowned. It was just one comment. I don't see why everyone is so upset. People see it as elitist, Samantha said carefully, and the student movement is gaining support. Later that day, Crockett's office released a short statement. Representative Crockett's comments were focused on policy differences, not educational institutions. Her words have been taken out of context. The statement only made things worse. People online called it a non-apology. The hashtag #EarEducationRespect, started by Mary's supporters, began trending even more widely. That evening, John and Mary held another video call to plan their next steps. This time, they invited other student leaders to join them. Lisa Jones from Arizona was there, along with Rick Gonzalez from Texas and several others who had spoken at the town hall. Crockett's statement didn't address the real issue, Mary said. She still doesn't understand why her comments were harmful. We need to keep the momentum going, John agreed. But how? Lisa suggested they collect stories from students at different types of schools about how their education had impacted their lives. Rick thought they should try to get more media attention. What about a petition? Suggested Sam Wilson, a student from a technical college in Ohio. We could ask people to sign in support of respecting all educational paths. They all liked that idea. Mary offered to create the petition that night. John said he would write a press release explaining their movement. We should also reach out to education experts, Rick added. Get some professional voices to support us. As they planned, none of them realized that an important education advocate named Nancy Rivera had been watching their virtual town hall recording. Nancy had spent 20 years fighting for better access to education for all Americans. She ran a nonprofit organization called Education for All. The next morning, Nancy posted a long message on her organization's website praising the students' efforts. These young people are reminding us that elitism has no place in discussions about who deserves a seat at the table, she wrote. They're standing up not just for themselves, but for the principle that diverse educational experiences strengthen our democracy rather than weaken it. Nancy's support brought even more attention to their cause. Education experts across the country began weighing in. Most supported the students' position that all educational paths deserved respect. By the end of the day, Mary's petition had over 50,000 signatures. Their press release was picked up by several news outlets, and Nancy Rivera reached out directly to John and Mary, offering to help them organize their growing movement. This is getting bigger than I ever expected, Mary said to John during their evening call. I know, John replied. It's a bit overwhelming. Are you nervous? Mary asked. John thought for a moment. A little, but I also feel like we're doing something important. This isn't just about one comment anymore. It's about changing how people think about education. The next day brought another surprise. A producer from the Good Morning America show emailed John. They wanted him to appear on their program to talk about the student movement. They would also invite other students from different educational backgrounds. They want me on national television? John asked when he called Mary with the news. His voice shook slightly. This is your chance to reach millions of people, Mary encouraged him. You can speak for all of us. John wasn't sure. He had never done anything like this before. He was just a regular student from a small town. But then he remembered why they had started this movement. Because everyone's voice in education mattered regardless of background. I'll do it, he decided. The producer wanted the segment to air in 2 days. That gave John little time to prepare. He spent hours practicing what he would say, with Mary and other friends helping him via video calls. Just speak from your heart, Mary advised. Tell them why this matters to you. The night before the show, John could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about all the students across America who had shared their stories with him. Students who had felt judged because of where they studied. Students who had worked hard to earn their education, no matter which school they attended. Early the next morning, John put on his best shirt, a light blue button-up that his mother had given him for his birthday. A car sent by the show picked him up from his dorm and took him to a local TV studio where he would join the program remotely. The studio was smaller than John had imagined. A friendly technician helped him with a microphone and told him where to look when speaking. John's heart beat fast as he waited for the segment to begin. On the screen in front of him, he could see the show's hosts in their New York studio. They were also talking to Lisa Jones and 2 other students from different types of schools. All of them would be part of the discussion. "We're going live in 30 seconds, the technician said. John took a deep breath. He thought about his parents watching from their farm. He thought about Mary and all the students who had joined their movement. He thought about Representative Crockett and her dismissive comment that had started it all. This was his chance to speak for all of them. To remind everyone that education wasn't about the name of your school, but about what you learned and how you use that knowledge to make a difference. The red light on the camera turned on. The host's voice came through John's earpiece. Today we're joined by several students who have started a nationwide conversation about respect in education. John Miller is a political science major at Westfield University who witnessed the comment that sparked this movement. John, tell us how this all began. John looked directly at the camera and started to tell his story. He didn't know it yet, but his appearance on national television would be the turning point that would finally force Representative Crockett to truly address the controversy she had created. The bright studio lights felt warm on John's face as he looked into the camera. Millions of people across America were watching him now on Good Morning America. John took a deep breath and began to speak. It started during a political forum at my university, he explained. Representative Crockett was answering questions from students. When asked about her opponent, Karoline Leavitt, she criticized Leavitt's education at St. Anselm College. She suggested that Leavitt couldn't understand policy because of where she went to school. The show's host, Diane Mitchell, nodded. "And why did that comment bother you so much, John?" John's voice grew stronger as he continued. "When we mock someone's education, we're not just attacking their credentials. We're saying that only certain paths to knowledge are valid. I'm a first-generation college student from a small farming town. People have questioned my choice of school too. These judgments hurt all of us." The camera switched to Lisa Jones, who joined remotely from Arizona. With her dark hair pulled back and wearing a simple green blouse, Lisa shared her story of attending community college before transferring to a state university. "I worked full-time while studying," Lisa said. "Community college made education possible for me. When people look down on certain schools, they're looking down on students who are working incredibly hard to improve their lives." Next, the camera showed Eric Rivera, a graduate of a technical school in Florida who now worked as an electrical engineer. "My technical education gave me skills that many traditional college graduates don't have," Eric said. "We need to respect different types of learning." Back in the main studio, education expert Dr. William Harris joined the conversation. With gray hair and glasses, he spoke with authority about the problem of educational elitism. "What these students are highlighting is an important issue in our society," Dr. Harris said. "We've created a hierarchy of educational institutions that often has more to do with status than with the quality of learning. Research shows that dedicated students can receive excellent education at many different types of schools." The host turned back to John. "What do you hope will come from this movement you've helped start?" John thought of all the messages he had received from students across the country. "We want people to judge ideas based on their merit, not on where someone went to school. We want everyone to understand that valuable learning happens at all kinds of institutions. And we hope Representative Crockett and others will recognize that dismissing someone's education is never acceptable." As the segment ended, John thanked the host and the other guests. The red light on the camera turned off. The technician helped John remove his microphone. "You did great, kid," the technician said with a smile. John checked his phone and found dozens of messages. Mary had texted, "You were amazing, so clear and powerful." His parents wrote that they were proud of him. Friends from school sent congratulations. But one message surprised him. It came from Professor Alan Grant, who had moderated the forum where Crockett made her comment. "Your appearance on national television was impressive," the message read. "Representative Crockett's office just contacted me. They want to arrange a meeting with student leaders, including you. Are you interested?" John stared at his phone in shock. He quickly called Mary. "Crockett wants to meet with us," he told her when she answered. "Really?" Mary sounded surprised. "What changed her mind?" "I think the TV appearance made a difference," John said. "And all the attention this is getting." Her first statement didn't work. Now she needs to address this properly. Mary was quiet for a moment. Do you think we should meet with her? Yes, John said firmly. This is our chance to explain directly to her why her comments were harmful. If she truly listens, maybe she'll understand. Over the next 2 days, they arranged the details of the meeting. It would take place at a neutral location, a conference room at a local community center. John and Mary would attend, along with Lisa Jones and Eric Rivera. Nancy Rivera from Education for All would join them as an advisor. Meanwhile, the public response to the Good Morning America segment was huge. Social media was filled with discussions about educational respect. People shared their own stories of being judged based on where they studied. News articles analyzed the issue of elitism in politics and education. Polls showed that most Americans supported the student's position. One survey found that 78% of people believed that judging someone based on which college they attended was wrong. Another poll showed that 65% of people thought Crockett should apologize for her comments. The pressure on Representative Crockett grew stronger each day. Several of her political allies privately suggested that she needed to address the controversy more directly. Her communications team drafted multiple statements, but none seemed adequate for the situation. Finally, Crockett decided that meeting with the students was her best option. She hoped to resolve the issue through direct conversation rather than through public statements. The day of the meeting arrived. John woke up feeling nervous but determined. He put on his best clothes, dark blue pants and a white button-up shirt. He met Mary, who had traveled from St. Anselm College, at a coffee shop near the community center. "Are you ready for this?" Mary asked. She wore a simple black dress with a gray cardigan. Her blonde hair was neatly braided. "As ready as I'll ever be," John replied. "I just want her to understand why this matters so much." They walked to the community center together. Lisa, Eric, and Nancy were already waiting outside. They all greeted each other with hugs and words of encouragement. "Remember," Nancy advised them, "stay calm and focus on the bigger issue. This isn't about attacking Crockett personally. It's about helping her understand the impact of her words." They entered the building and were shown to a large conference room. A long wooden table filled the center of the room, with comfortable chairs around it. Water bottles and notepads were placed at each seat. At exactly 2 p.m., Representative Crockett arrived with 2 staff members. She looked different in person than she had on stage at the forum. Her face seemed tired, and her smile appeared somewhat forced. "Thank you all for coming," Crockett said as she took her seat at the table. "I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this situation directly." Nancy Rivera spoke first. "Representative Crockett, these students have started an important national conversation about respect for all educational paths. They're not here to attack you, but to help you understand why your comments about St. Anselm College were harmful." Crockett nodded. "I'm here to listen." For the next hour, each student shared their story. Mary explained what it meant to be a student at St. Anselm College, the quality of education she received, and how Crockett's dismissive comment had felt to her and her classmates. Lisa talked about the barriers she had faced in pursuing higher education and how comments like Crockett's reinforced harmful stereotypes about certain schools. Eric described how his technical education had given him practical skills that many traditional college graduates lacked. Finally, John spoke about growing up in a small farming town, being the first in his family to attend college, and why respecting all educational paths mattered for democracy. Throughout their stories, Crockett listened carefully. Sometimes she took notes. Occasionally she asked questions. The conversation was serious but respectful. When the students finished speaking, the room fell quiet. Everyone looked at Crockett, waiting for her response. "I want to thank each of you for your honesty," Crockett said slowly. "I've been thinking a lot about my comment at the forum. At the time, I was focused on criticizing my opponent's policies, not her education. But I can see now that my words had a much bigger impact than I intended." She paused, looking at the students one by one. "I've learned an important lesson from all of you," she continued. Our words matter, especially when we're public figures, and judging someone's ideas based on where they went to school is never appropriate. Mary leaned forward slightly. Does this mean you're willing to address this publicly? Crockett nodded. Yes. I believe I owe an apology not just to Karoline Leavitt, but to students at St. Anselm College and to anyone who felt dismissed by my comments. I'm prepared to make a public statement. As the meeting ended, the atmosphere in the room had changed. What had started as tension had transformed into cautious hope. The students had been heard, and Representative Crockett seemed genuinely affected by their stories. Outside the community center, reporters waited for news about the meeting. John, Mary, Lisa, and Eric stood together as Nancy spoke briefly to the press. The conversation was productive, Nancy said. Representative Crockett has agreed to make a public statement soon. We're grateful for her willingness to listen and learn. As the students walked away from the cameras, John turned to Mary. Do you think we made a difference? Mary smiled. I think we did. But the real test will be what she says in her public statement. None of them knew exactly what Crockett would say or do next. But they had accomplished something important already. They had turned a moment of disrespect into a movement for change. And they had shown that students from any college or university could stand up and make their voices heard. 2 days after the meeting with Representative Crockett, John sat in his dorm room watching the rain fall outside his window. His phone rang. It was Mary. John, have you checked your email? Crockett's office just sent us something. John quickly opened his laptop and found the email. It was from Samantha Lee, Crockett's communications director. The message was simple. Representative Crockett has decided to make her public statement at St. Anselm College tomorrow at 2 p.m. She would like all of you to be there if possible. She's coming to my school? Mary's voice was filled with surprise. I never expected that. It's a powerful gesture, John said. She's going directly to the place she criticized. John quickly made arrangements to miss his classes the next day. Professor Grant gave him permission to be absent. John booked a bus ticket to New Hampshire, where St. Anselm College was located. Lisa and Eric were also planning to attend. Nancy Rivera would meet them there. That evening, news of Crockett's planned statement spread quickly. TV stations announced that she would address the controversy at St. Anselm College. Political analysts speculated about what she might say and whether it would be enough to end the controversy. Early the next morning, John boarded a bus to New Hampshire. The trip took 3 hours. He spent the time thinking about everything that had happened since the forum at Westfield University. What had started as a simple comment had grown into a national conversation about respect for all educational paths. When John arrived at St. Anselm College, Mary was waiting for him outside. The main entrance. The campus was beautiful, with old brick buildings and large trees. Students walked between classes, some stopping to look at John with recognition from his TV appearance. Welcome to my school, Mary said with a smile. She gave John a quick hug. How was your trip? Not bad, John replied. This is a beautiful campus. Let me show you around before the press conference, Mary offered. They walked through the campus together. Mary pointed out the library where she had first seen the video of Crockett's comment. She showed John the classroom where her favorite professor taught political theory. They passed students studying on benches and playing frisbee on the green lawns. I can see why you love it here, John said. They met Lisa, Eric, and Nancy for lunch at the campus cafe. The small group talked about what might happen at the press conference. They all felt nervous but hopeful. Whatever she says, you've already accomplished something important, Nancy reminded them. You've changed the conversation about education in this country. At 1:30 p.m., they walked to Alumni Hall, where the press conference would take place. The large room was already filling with students, faculty, and reporters. Cameras were set up at the back. A podium stood at the front with the St. Anselm College logo on it. John, Mary, Lisa, and Eric were shown to seats in the front row. The college president, Dr. Kevin White, greeted them warmly. Thank you for what you've done, he said quietly. This conversation was long overdue. At exactly 2 p.m., Representative Crockett entered the room with her staff. The room grew quiet. Crockett wore a simple navy blue suit and looked serious as she approached the podium. Camera flashes filled the room. Dr. White spoke first, welcoming everyone to St. Anselm College. Then he introduced Crockett. "Thank you, Dr. White," Crockett began. Her voice was clear and steady. "I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. Today at St. Anselm College." She looked around the room, her eyes passing over the students, faculty, and reporters. "Last week, during a political forum at Westfield University, I made a comment about this institution. I suggested that St. Anselm College was not known for producing policy experts. I implied that someone who studied here might not understand complex policy issues." The room was completely silent as everyone listened. "Those comments were inappropriate and reflected an elitist perspective that I've come to recognize is harmful," Crockett continued. "They did not reflect the reality of the excellent education provided at this institution. More importantly, they reinforced a damaging idea that only certain educational paths have value." Crockett paused, looking directly at Mary and John in the front row. "I want to apologize to the students and faculty of St. Anselm College. I want to apologize to Karoline Leavitt. And I want to apologize to students everywhere who have felt judged based on where they received their education rather than on their ideas and abilities." Cameras flashed again. Reporters scribbled notes. "I've learned an important lesson from the student movement that began in response to my comments," Crockett said. "I've learned that we must judge ideas on their merit, not on the credentials of those who express them. I've learned that valuable education happens at all kinds of institutions across this country, from community colleges to technical schools, to liberal arts colleges, to state universities." Crockett then announced that she would be creating a new scholarship fund for first-generation college students. She also promised to host a series of forums at various types of educational institutions to discuss policy issues affecting young Americans. "I hope to turn this mistake into an opportunity for greater understanding and respect," she concluded. "Thank you." As Crockett stepped away from the podium, the room filled with applause. Many students stood, including Mary and John. Dr. White returned to the microphone. "Thank you, Representative Crockett, for your apology," he said. "St. Anselm College accepts your apology in the spirit of learning and growth that we try to foster here." Dr. White then invited John and Mary to join him at the podium. John felt nervous as he walked up, but Mary gave him an encouraging smile. "These young people, along with students across the country, have reminded us of something important," Dr. White said. "They've shown us that education is not about the name or prestige of an institution. It's about the transformation that happens when students engage with ideas, when they are challenged to think critically, and when they apply what they've learned to make our world better." After the formal press conference ended, reporters surrounded John, Mary, Lisa, and Eric for comments. They answered questions patiently, emphasizing that their movement was about respect for all educational paths. Later that evening, the small group of student leaders gathered in Mary's dorm room. They watched news coverage of the press conference on Mary's laptop. Most commentators agreed that Crockett's apology seemed genuine, and her promised actions showed a real commitment to change. "Do you think we've made a lasting difference?" Lisa asked. "I believe we have," Nancy replied. "These conversations don't end overnight, but you've changed how many people think about education." Over the following months, their prediction proved true. Representative Crockett kept her promises. She established the scholarship fund and held forums at community colleges, technical schools, and universities across the country. At each event, she invited students to share their educational experiences and perspectives on policy issues. Karoline Leavitt and Crockett even appeared together at an event promoting respectful political dialogue. Though they still disagreed on many policy issues, they modeled how to debate ideas without personal attacks. The term educational elitism entered the national vocabulary. Schools began discussing how to address biases related to where students received their education. Employers examined their hiring practices to ensure they weren't unfairly favoring graduates from certain institutions. For John and Mary, life eventually returned to normal. They focused on their studies and stayed in touch through regular video calls. Both became more active in student government at their respective schools. Their experience had taught them that students' voices mattered and could create real change. 1 year after the controversy, John sat in a political science class at Westfield University. His professor was discussing a recent poll showing that Americans' attitudes about education had shifted significantly. More people now believed that quality education could happen at any type of institution. This change in public opinion can be traced back to what some now call the education respect movement, the professor explained. It began when a group of students challenged a dismissive comment about a college and grew into a national conversation about how we value different educational paths. John smiled quietly to himself. He thought about the forum where it all began, about Mary's viral post, about their appearance on Good Morning America, and about Crockett's apology at St. Anselm College. What had started as a moment of disrespect had become a movement for change. It had happened because one student, then another, and then many more had decided to stand up and speak out. They had reminded America of a simple but powerful truth. Education isn't about where you learn, but about what you do with the knowledge you gain. In his notebook, John wrote down a quote from Nancy Rivera that had stayed with him throughout this journey. When we respect all paths to knowledge, we create a society where everyone's potential can be realized. That, he believed, was the true lesson of their story.